Hey, what's going on there, everybody? We are back for another quick edition of We Talk LA. With me, as always, to discuss the week's upcoming at-home to-dos is WeLikeLA.com editor-in-chief, Juliet Bennett-Ryla. Juliet, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. We got some news today that is, I guess, on the upswing, at least if you're looking to do stuff outside and not in your house so much anymore. The um, county health department just put out a roadmap for reopening some of the facilities within the county, including possibility of golf courses and trails opening up in the very near future. I thought maybe we could just touch on that real quick before we get to the list of to-dos that we're gonna go over.
Yeah, I think it's a slow announcement. Definitely. I think it's good for us to have this roadmap so we know what's coming down the pipeline, but it is slow. So starting on Friday, there are a couple things that may open. They include retail shops, so books, music, clothes, toys, but you can't go in. You have to place your order and then pick up on the curb. Golf courses and trails if there's physical distancing, and you will still have to wear a facial covering. So if hiking with a mask on does not appeal to you, that might not be as fun. And that's all for Friday. That is a state and county directive, and we're not quite sure what Los Angeles proper will do.
Right. I think that's going to be a big issue of confusion. You and I were discussing just a minute before we started taping. Like, there's multiple land use agencies that govern trails within Los Angeles County, and not all of them are always synced up. And so, even if the county says that their Department of Parks and Rec is allowing usage of trails, it doesn't necessarily mean that city-run facilities or other agencies are allowing visitors to hike those trails. So I think I would just put a big caveat on everything to say, like, if you're going to go out and you think you're going to use a public space this weekend, based on that single directive from the county that they released today, make sure you do some extra due diligence and research to see if the associated website with whatever trail is that you're going to use has put up some sort of notice saying that they're going to allow with the social distancing guidelines in place.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see what the mayor says today, because initially when Governor Newsom said we're going to move to phase 2 starting on Friday, he did say some counties could go slower. Some may ultimately go faster if they can meet a set of criteria. And then Garcetti said he didn't think LA would be ready by Friday. So I'm wondering what the discrepancy between the county and the city will be. And obviously LA has some areas that are very dense, versus some parts of the counties that may not have as many people. So I'm pretty curious to see how this pans out.
Yeah, it's very complex. I mean, LA is basically like its own state in a lot of ways in terms of population and the different agencies that govern it, and it's a complex system. So hopefully the officials from different levels can get their P's and Q's in order, and we'll have some clarity as we head into the weekend about what's open and what isn't.
Yeah.
That said, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
If it works out, it'll be exciting, I think, for people, because stage 2, there are other businesses in stage 2 that include libraries, museums, galleries. We're not going to get to bowling alleys and bars and nightclubs until way later, stage 3. We're not going to get to big events until stage 4. When we can go out and we don't have to worry about any of this, that's stage 5. And there are no dates for those stages. So think of this as pretty deep in the future. But it is nice to know that it's nice to know what we have coming up. Like, it's nice to know that libraries will be next, and maybe there's a few other things. It'll be good to return to museums. So
yeah, it's progress. So that's a good thing. But there are some things to do this weekend that we can talk about that you can definitely do, which are a couple of another online experiences that we're highlighting in our weekly list of things to do at home. So the first of which is kind of in our running theme of online puzzles and role-playing games and things of that, which I think you've done a really good job of compiling. There's something you found called Arcana, which is an interactive reality game, interactive alternate reality game, which I'm not familiar with this acronym, ARG. that you used, but apparently it's a horror drama, which I am familiar with kind of with that genre. But maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about us, what that experience is like, and what the plot line is.
Yeah, it does get confusing, the acronym ARG, because it's used in two different ways and they're both really interactive. Augmented reality is like Pokemon Go, where you're seeing something overlaid atop, I guess, your phone or your tablet. And alternate reality games are kind of similar in that they're a game and they're laid over top of real life. So a lot of them, characters will call you or they'll email you, and you'll get these phone calls on your actual phone. So it's kind of like a narrative that's on top of your life. This one's on social media, so you can do it at home. That's the whole point. It's free. I don't know much about it. They're intentionally keeping it pretty secret, but I can tell you that it comes from people who have work that I really like. Tommy Houghton is involved, and he has the escape room Stash House, which is the one where you're like,
Yes, I've heard of this. I didn't do it, but I heard a lot of good things about that as well.
yeah, you're like a drug kingpin's lackey, and you have to flush baggies of drugs instead of get out. It's pretty funny. And then there's this company called, is it E3W Productions? They're my favorite company that's doing experimental immersive theater work right now. They always have really good stuff, and they had just opened a play called Where the Others Are a couple weeks prior, and then of course had to immediately shut that down. It's only for 2 audience members at a time, but it happens inside of an RV, so there's no way to do it without with physical distancing. So they're on that. There's a couple other people involved in that. And it's pretty simple to get started. All you have to do is follow the first character on Instagram. That kicked off yesterday, so you can hop on now, and you can catch up whenever. And I'm not really sure what's going to unfold. I know that I've loved all of the plays that they've put on. I know that Tommy's really good at puzzles, so I think it'll be a fun diversion for people who are looking for something that's both interactive and narrative.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. There's also this weekend coming up another example of a physical event from the past that's just gone completely online, and that's the USC Games Expo, which they usually do every year. They have students from I think it's from the computer science or the engineering program there, basically do a whole mishmash of games to present to the public. But this year, you're just kind of downloading them, right? And you can play them online.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool because these students often have very good games, and they often wind up becoming, things that you can buy on Steam and bestsellers. There was one a couple years ago, Nevermind, that I played and really liked and wrote about at the time. So yeah, you're going to get some good stuff, and you're going to have some weird stuff to try, and there will be Q&As and a bunch of other stuff you can do, and you can do it all at home. And then the benefit of that is once you've downloaded something, you can keep using it. So it may give you some stuff to do while we're still at home, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a great program, and they've got some really great students. So always nice to support them too.
And I don't know if I mentioned this or you mentioned it, but it's free. You can download all those things for free, and it's open May 12th, starting at noon. So starting this weekend, basically, right?
Yeah, that should be fun.
Okay, cool. And the last thing was, since we already kind of teased the fact that people are going to be possibly, and big capital P, possibly going out of the house and starting to use some outdoor facilities in the coming week or so. There's something in Los Feliz at the Parker Gallery that they're doing that's kind of interesting, that if you at least live in that area, or maybe it's walkable to you, it could be kind of fun to do. What was that all about?
Yeah, it's like an outdoor sculpture gallery. I personally have not gone to see it. I do not live over there. And I probably won't get over there, unfortunately, because I don't have a car to get that way.
Yeah.
But for those of you that can, it sounds really neat. It's an art gallery that they've put outside. So everything you can do while social distancing. It's called Sculpture from a Distance. There are 19 different artists, and they'll change those up every 2 weeks now through June 13. So you can make it a regular part of your walk if that's something that's accessible and close to you. And I mean, part of it is, it's interesting because, like I said, galleries are a part of phase 2, and so are museums. And it's weird to say like, oh, go do this, like physically go do this thing, or this is something you can leave your house to do. But as we think of those businesses beginning to open, we are going to have to get to a place where we can go somewhere and look at art, or go somewhere and watch something, or see something, or pick something up, and get used to this idea that we have to be 6 feet apart while doing it. And so I think if this is a physical, if we're going to talk about any physical things to go do, then something like sculpture from a distance is, I think, a pretty good entry point, because it is something where you're outside, you can very clearly keep 6 feet away from everyone else, and you can kind of, I guess, practice for that, because it sounds like we're going to have to do it for a pretty long time.
Yeah, it does definitely seems like it's going to be the new reality. And I'm sure I'm just curious what the guidelines are going to look like for some of the existing institutions that are going to be letting patrons back in the coming weeks and or months. Like the Getty or the Broad, places like that, where they have some level of control over the flow of visitors. Like, what's the capacity going to be now, and are they just going to have signs posted and security people like monitoring whether or not you're abiding by these things? Or it's just it's a new reality, and it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a little awkward at first. So yeah,
Yeah.
any way we can prepare ourselves psychologically for that is a good thing. But
An outdoor setting is an easy way to get started. We
definitely.
the trails weren't shut down in the beginning. That only happened because people couldn't physically distance. So hopefully we can use the trails as they reopen and stuff like this to get used to keeping our distance.
Yeah, I think I talked about this with Casey Schreiner when he was on the show a couple episodes ago. He and I were talking about how a big part of whether or not those facilities or those trails can stay open is if people use them responsibly. And there's so much pent up demand to go out and do this kind of stuff. That kind of worries me, that like even just what we said at the beginning, like how the county is now basically publicly stating they're getting into stage 2, and they specifically put on their roadmap, I'm looking right at it, like trails, golf courses now open. People are going to see that as a giant green light and just be like, okay, got to get outside as quickly as possible, and like thousands of people end up going to the same spots. And then we end up kind of having to take 2 steps back after we took 1 step forward.
Yeah, and I know it's predicted that we will have to toggle back and forth for some time, but I'm just really hoping that we can make it through this initial phase without having to go too far back.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, thanks for the time. Good update as always. We'll definitely include a link to this coming week's list in the description of the video below. In the meantime, everybody out there watching, stay safe and stay well. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.